A lot of the people with real power just are not interested in these kind of concepts. How do you navigate the fear that, love is not a priority for a lot of the people who, wield the weapons of the world?
Hello, my name is Jonah Primo, and welcome to the Overexamined Life, where we meet some of the great thinkers of our generation in order to find a little more peace and joy as we navigate our regular day. Today, I'm very excited to bring you the magnificent, resplendent Henry Shukman. Henry Shukman is a poet, author, meditation teacher, and co-founder of the single path meditation app, The Way. His most recent book is Original Love, the 4 Inns on the Path of Awakening. We talked about Henry's awakening, breakdown, and reawakening, Zen, staying present, memory, flow, and most importantly, in this turbulent day and age, what love is and how to realize it's all around us. Here's Henry.
So, Henry, you took an unusual path into the world of mindfulness. You had an awakening, and then you had a nervous breakdown. And most people like to do it the other way around. So, can you talk a little bit about the experiences that started this journey off?
I grew up in Oxford, England, which was both my parents were professors of an utterly rational, empiricist, logical, positivist world of everybody I knew. When I was 19 years old, I was far away from home. Actually, on a gap year, I worked in Argentina and I backpacked, and I wrote my first book. And towards the end of that time, I was standing alone on a beach and watching the sun go down, and I was all alone, really all alone. And I suddenly discovered that what I had always assumed, which was that I somehow inhabited my body and everything else happened outside of me, was fundamentally incomplete or just plain wrong. And there was some other totally different sort of order of experience that had always been going on, whereby I was inseparable from what I was looking at. Not only that, but what I was looking at and myself formed a single kind of substance that was completely insubstantial. It was like a single field that was made of nothing. And that's what everything really was to the furthest reaches of the universe. And so I belonged in a way that was beyond belonging. I just was one with everything. And
Wow.
and it was just totally mind-blowing. And what that one was basically insubstantial, nothing. The beginning of time was, the end of time were right with me. And
Whoa.
it was very, very powerful. And, definitely no compounds in my bloodstream. There never had been, other than beer, basically, and and I had nothing in my schooling, my background. I was pretty kind of well educated, I was fairly fluent, reading 4 languages by then, but nothing had intimated anything like this in any of my education, and yet I knew it was more true than anything else I'd ever encountered. It just sort of, it superseded everything else that I knew about the world, life, personhood, consciousness, anything, it just this was the truth of a life, my life, existence, cosmos, all of it, Fast forward a few weeks, I go home back to rainy Oxford, England. And as soon as I get to England and start being kind of, I was on a bus from the airport going down the streets confined by their curbs, everybody very dutifully driving correctly, and it's very low grey sky. And I sort of remember, oh my God, there's this other world where it's profoundly conformist and really sort of oppressed, and there's a sense of constriction and in the fabric of the social fabric and the architectural fabric and all of the fabric, even the fact all the fields were shorn and had strict fences around them. It was a totally different world from the South America I'd been in for 6 months. And then when I got home, I was lying in the bath at my dad's house, and lying in the bath, listening to kind of whistling in the plumbing, and their voices downstairs. And it suddenly was like echoes of a nightmare that I'd lived in for a long time, but had never recognized as a nightmare. And
Wow.
that was actually my first inkling. I mean, it's now so obvious, but that I'd had quite a traumatic childhood. My parents had a really difficult divorce and remarriage situation, very painful, but nobody talked about it. English,
Yep.
all that
Stiff upper lip.
Yeah, stiff upper lip, and also they're academics. They're all.
Yeah.
We don't go there. We think that's what we do. We don't feel. Well, that's all woolly nonsense. And I'd had a really bad skin disease since the age of 6 months. Actually, right up until when I went away at the age of 18.
Sometimes I see people with, skin problems, and I just like, my heart goes out to them, because we live in a world where you're judged instantly, and it's something that you can't control. And that seems like one of the hardest things to navigate when you're 18 and you're supposed to feel young and sexy.
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, obviously there I can think of a few much harder things, but that people do go through. But true, it was difficult, and I hadn't really recognized that the kind of shameful, dismal way I often felt inside, and would kind of avoid by being busy in my kind of, my studies, friendships, and so on. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't sort of curled up in a ball having a miserable time. I was actually, but I was deep inside, but I sort of made myself ignore it, and I could to some extent compartmentalize it. But when I came back after that incredibly opening experience, I had no defenses. And so basically all the traumatic experiences of my childhood were kind of reawakened. And I think I got re-traumatized.
You didn't have the tools to sort of navigate what was happening.
Yeah, I neither had the tools and resources to have a clue. I mean, I was totally illiterate emotionally, psychologically at that point. That experience is sort of on the beach, had stripped away all my customary defenses.
Wow.
All the ways that I'd adapted to cope with this trauma that I'd lived with from a very young age, they were gone. So when I got home to the scenarios that had been so stressful when I was a younger kid, I just had no defenses against them.
What were your defense mechanisms?
Well, I adapted. I learned that I can't have the full range of human emotion because my parents won't tolerate them. I learned that I've got to live with this really uncomfortable skin and very unsightly skin, and navigate carefully, and I developed adaptive sub-personalities.
Wow.
For different contexts, for being at home, for being at school, for playing games, and that a whole little team of adapted personalities, and they were gone. I was just like, boom, I'm this wide open consciousness that's open to everything, and feels everything and loves everything, and then I got, because of that experience, and then I got home, and man, it was unsustainable, and it took years to kind of start getting resourced properly.
So what were you doing to claw your way out? What were the resources you were starting to look at?
Well, I have to say, to begin with, there was a bit of alcohol. That helped a bit. In my first couple of years at university, hash played a part as well.
Yeah.
Red Leb, weak hash that you used to get in England in those days.
I feel bad for you guys. It was a different time.
We had no idea what real grass is like, And then, but then I got into, the first really good thing I did was meditation.
Yeah.
When I was 24, I started meditating, and that opened up the path of healing. So then I found there was a cool therapist who was from California, and he had a group every Saturday morning for people in their 20s in London, and I joined that. And,
very cool.
I started sort of picking my way out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, if for those of you who are watching, you'll see that Henry is now glowing, undisputably. So a big theme of Original Love, your fantastic book, is that, we miss out on a lot of the richness of life the actual present lives that we're living, either in pursuit of a future goal or ruminating about the past. And just looking at the future goal, it's one of these sort of the journey is the destination type concepts. But I was wondering if you ever think that the fantasy of a destination is sometimes what can get us out of bed in the morning, a world where we can live with a more fulfilling job or in a better neighborhood or in a different situation. If you're in a broken home, as you were, imagining a place where you can have, a big emotional connection might be something that really drives you. And so my question is it ever better to not be mindful of the present? If I'm enjoying the bird songs on the way to an important pitch, instead of rehearsing my pitch, am I not risking living in a worse present for longer?
Yeah, I think there's different ways to think about this. Firstly, it's really good to have a kind of compass heading. And an objective, a goal can be great for that. And absolutely, it may be very smart, and to have an intended thing I really want to get to. Absolutely, it can be motivating, it can be energizing, encouraging, really, really good, definitely. But that doesn't preclude being able to soak in and absorb more the richness of immediate present moment sense experience. To have a goal doesn't mean that you have to be continuously solely fixated on an elusive goal. Another, in other words, we probably want to have both. It's like, I always think it's like in the old sailing days, when they back in pre-steam, ships would set their sails and try to keep on that course. So it's not like there isn't a destination. It's not like but nobody's thinking about it all the time. It might be 3 months away or 6 weeks away or whatever. There's no need to keep checking. Oh yeah, it's kind of on course, correct the course, course, correct, But meanwhile, they're doing all the daily things that need to be done and with full attention on them, trusting that we're going in the direction we want. There's also another problem with goals, is that it's so common that people get to a goal and it's like, well, okay. And it might be satisfying for a little bit, but not for that long. And so they reset with another goal and it's rinse and repeat.
I mean, I'd say it's often deflating even when you reach a goal. Like you get to a goal and you go, well, I thought all my problems would go away. And here I am with new problems.
Exactly. And these days, for so many people, goals are numbers. Like a number in a bank account, a number of views, a number of likes or whatever,
Podcast listens,
exactly. And actually what happens when you hit that magic number? Well, basically nothing, It's just a digital display changes.
You often see a number that you've been shooting for and you just go, there's nothing human about this. I'm not even convinced any of these people are real. It's just this experience of, a computer talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. It is simply a digital display changes. There's a lot more that one could say about this because, partly, how in the book I got these 4 different areas, 4 different zones of development.
Yeah, the ins.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of them is that mindfulness, being more open to present moment experience. But that in itself is not that, that's not as far as you can go in meditation by any means.
Yeah.
And that was another point of the book, that you can totally rest in that and you'll still be taken on a journey to deeper things.
That's beautiful. I mean, I guess in that sense, would you agree it applies to memory? I guess looking back this time, can you enjoy a beautiful memory without attachment at the expense of the present? Can you just bask in it without it being problematic?
If a memory arises, what's the problem? If it's sort of, if we're resting in a kind of fundamental awareness, lots of different things will bubble up in it. Like this, the moment that we're in in present moment time will be appearing.
Yeah.
And sometimes a thought will appear. That's part of the fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a memory, sometimes an imagined future. And it's all cool, you know.
That's good. So because a lot of the time when you're getting started out, you want to resist, you're so focused on being present in terms of sensations and in terms of, what's going through your mind, that when you feel a memory, you go, oh, I'm remembering. I shouldn't be remembering, but it's okay. It's good to know that you can enjoy something that's happened in the past without panicking that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of orthodoxy in some schools of mindfulness that would discourage that. And I don't agree with that. I was once doing an MBSR course, and there's an exercise that they do in MBSR where you eat one raisin. And can you keep your mind on the taste of the raisin? And there was this. I remember there was a Brazilian woman in the training, and we're checking in afterwards. She was about the raisin, and she said, man, I was loving the sweetness of the raisin, and suddenly I remembered being on my grandmother's farm out in the countryside, and it's so beautiful. I remembered like I was a child again, how sweet a raisin was to me then. And of course, the teacher sort of almost scolded her, said, "Oh, you got triggered," And I'm thinking, bullshit, that's beautiful. And it's one of the things that I really like about Zen is that it values the whole person. It's like, it's not like you're supposed to only be like a robot in the present moment. No, it's a rich human experience. And if a lovely nostalgia comes up in our experience, fantastic, and that's rich, and it could be creative, and it can nourish our life.
Oh, that's such a relief, Henry. I'm happy to hear that. You say in the book that the universe loves us, which is a pretty bold claim. I mean, when I read that, my gut feeling was, I feel like the universe is apathetic, maybe indifferent. How do you know it loves us?
Look, I'll tell you what, the whole point of this book is that when people discover what Zen calls the original face, so old Zen koan, like one of the old Zen riddles. What is your original face that you've had since before even your parents were born? And it's an invitation, basically, to non-dual experience. It's like, what is there? Is there something in your experience right now that has absolutely always been here? That's the question that's really asking. And if there is, what is it? And you can't answer that without experiencing it.
Yeah.
So when you actually experience it and you find, oh my gosh, there's everything's one, or there's one vast awareness that everything's arising in. And in fact, it's not even vast. It has no size. It has no dimensions. It has no time. Because it has no time, it's always been here, you could say, since before even my parents were born. That's pointing to that experience. When somebody really drops into that without any trace left of their ordinary sense of self, it's a bath in the most spectacular, universal, unconditional well-being. You've dropped in this place where nothing can be harmed. There is no harm in it, and nothing can be healed because there's nothing to heal. There's no healing there because everything is already okay. And that is, for the human system, it feels like love. Very, universal, unconditional love. It's, of course, there can be times when some trace is left of a normal self. Oh my gosh, what's this? It could be destabilizing, scary as well. But that's only if there's still some trace of self left, But when you're really in it, when you're really gone and it's fully manifest, it's like this unconditional, unviolable love.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really getting at with the term original love. I think you twigged with that when I heard you talking about the book. So that's cool. But
that's right. I mean, I was saying, I was feeling a cosmic love just reading the book. Like it really does. And this is why, I really want some of you listeners to just check it out, is because just hearing about this, just reading about this reminds you in real time that the world is a beautiful place, and you do feel a very palpable warmth when you read some of this stuff. Like it's in you. It comes and you go, that wasn't external. That just came from this. It just happened to me. It just in present awareness, bam, open awareness. I just feel warm. And I guess you're calling that warmth love.
Yes. If somebody said, "Hey, you're using the word a bit loosely, Henry," and the word itself is a bit vague, I haven't really got a good defense. I'm sorry, that's the truth. But I think, the only real defense I got is like refer it back to the origins in Zen of the original face. That's one place to go with it. And another is like original sin, the idea that you're originally bad. And I've never bought that, Even when you look at some contemporary politicians, I still don't believe in original sin.
Do you ever think that our conversion rate to love is too slow? Just looking around the world, looking at what percentage of people are interested in these concepts, like we have a lot of problems in our world. And I sometimes fear that, podcasts like this, books like yours, we're preaching to the converted already. We're like an audience that has warmed to these ideas, who are trying to live an examined life, who are trying to be more moral people or be better people or just have less suffering for themselves. But then it feels like a lot of the people with real power just are not interested in these kind of concepts. How do you navigate the fear that, love is not a priority for a lot of the people who, wield the weapons of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that is our situation. But I think we cannot but do what we're called to do to try to, put our spin on the good word out there, And I really, one thing that I really wanted to do is this, because now that there's so much more interested in meditation, when I began in the late 80s meditating, man, it was a fringe thing. It just, it really was. And I've seen it in my lifetime go from that, where it might have been, maybe it was tens of thousands doing it, to maybe tens of millions now doing it, but of that vast number now doing it, exponentially greater than probably ever before in human history. Not enough actually understand what this awakening thing really is. There's the term awakening is used a lot, and in some, often in mindfulness circles, they'll talk about awakening, and they mean nothing like cosmic non-dual awakening. They mean recognizing that you're thinking, recognizing that you've been thinking, recognizing that you are not your thoughts. Those are all great and really valuable, but they're still like foundational practice. They're not,
and they're dualistic as well sometimes, right?
Totally, 100%. Yeah, 100%. So I'm trying to be part of this message that, hey, there's much more to meditation than just mindfulness and de-stressing. Invaluable though that is, there's much more, and that's the reason to really keep doing it. Because I mean, my hope is that the more people understand this idea that the sense of separate self is illusory, and that along with it, the poisons of greed and hate and aggression and hostility and of delusion, that they get massively reduced through awakening. That's really true, and I think that will. The more that message spreads, the better. The more people experience it, the better. And it will become more normalized, and it'll if we're around long enough, it will infiltrate the corridors of power, I think, quite naturally, because people see, like, we want to have people who aren't so selfish and driven by greed and hate. We want that, and it'll just become. Well, why the hell would we vote in anybody who is manifestly driven by greed and hate?
Well, maybe we don't know about the people who aren't driven by greed and hate. Like maybe the incentive structure to get out and, pitch your right to be in power is different and selects for different things. I mean, that's my worry. My worry is that the people who love self-select out of the industry of politics.
It would depend on the country. I mean, I think there's a lot of countries in Europe have much more sensible political systems, actually. They don't have unbridled dark money pouring into politics, for example. I mean, basically, the American system is just more or less 100% corrupt. So it's very difficult to do anything with it. So it's got to begin with political reform.
Yeah,
I'm not the only person saying this. My gosh, obviously. But so I think it's a particular case. But I think if you look at Danish politics or Dutch politics, I'm not so sure. French, German politics, by and large, the systems are much more sane than in the US.
Yeah.
And so there is the possibility of actually a more compassionate and wise message being heard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're an optimist. I mean, the pessimist in me thinks that the Danish lovely politicians might just lose Greenland to the US version of their role. But
yeah.
We'll see how that plays out. I'm rooting for love too, just so you know. I want to ask. This is a personal issue. In my darkest hours, I really struggle with self-love, and I find that I'm able to struggle with self-love while still freely loving others, even people who have hurt me or hurt people I care about. And I've sort of found that I don't need self-love as a prerequisite to love others. And it's not even that I would dislike myself or wish I was different. Mindfulness has actually really helped with all of that acceptance and, just generally being okay with who I am. But I find sometimes I get tired of being me. And I've found that I don't find the way my mind works exciting. I just find myself predictable without it being negative or positive. It's almost like I've fallen out of love with myself, but want to stay friends. And I was wondering if you could help me out there.
But how do you put it? You don't like who you are sometimes.
No, I don't mind who I am. I'm just bored.
You're bored with you. But what if you're not who you think you are? What if who you think you are is just a fantasy? It's just something imagined. Imagine that you don't exist the way you think you do. Imagine that, you're experiencing everything you're experiencing right now, but there just isn't the you that you think is at the heart of it. Is just evaporated. And there's just this experience. So there's no possibility of being bored because there's no time. There isn't a thread through time that you're having to be dragging yourself through. You're just not there to be dragged through anything. It's just this.
But my issue is that, I feel like even if I can reach a state of feeling selfless or non-identity, I still find that my synapses will trigger the way they're genetically predisposed to trigger. And therefore, I think something the same way, in the same pattern, regardless of whether or not I've let go of my ideas about myself.
Well, I don't know about that. I would say that you can definitely go through a fundamental shift where you just aren't attached to things the way you have been up until that point.
Okay.
You can go through maybe a series of turning points, but you can turn a corner.
Yeah.
I think through this kind of practice you can, where, all the multiplicitous ways in which, we've been attached to stuff and we'll know some of it and vast amounts of it we won't have been aware of, but they can be dug out. They can be excavated in a single powerful swoop and they're gone. And there's just this arising and you're free. You're basically free of you, of what the old idea of you, and your life is so much richer. And it's, you can have all the memories you want, you can have all the imaginings you want, but the system of latching onto stuff, and I really want this, and I really don't want that, that can just be gone. And it's just a beautiful open. It's like a mountain spring bubbling up out of the rock, You know,
Yeah.
we don't know where it's bubbling from, but it's bubbling up, and that's a real possibility. It's not pie in the sky.
And do you think that the path to having that more often, because I have that occasionally, and I you know I have a meditation practice, and
Yes.
I enjoy that experience now and then, but if I want that to be a more regular experience, is it more practice?
It could be. It could just be cumulative. I think there's a certain point where that experience comes on so convincingly that you don't go back afterwards.
Really?
It's a real turning point. It's not like I think there's lots of different turning points. One is having that at all sometimes is great. But I think you can actually go over a hump where
Wow.
basically it becomes the norm.
That's cool. So that's where you live. It's
Large
okay to
stretch.
say it. You are a guru.
I'm not a guru. Fuck
You're a guru.
no way. I'm a Zen fool, you know. So I could say that large stretches of time, yes, but not absolutely. No.
Okay.
Sometimes things have come up. I've been in a very difficult situation, you know, and there was I can tell you exactly when and where that turning point happened for me. Having somebody I love very much being in a really difficult situation, you know, heartbreaking for me. More had to open, you know.
Okay.
And it was probably easier to let that happen than it would have been in the past. But I needed to take another step, you know, that I hadn't imagined I'd ever need to.
Have you met people who just seem to exist in this state of open awareness all the time?
I've met people I trained under a handful of people, you know, who are very frank about it. And I'd say that they had access to it anytime, but that didn't mean that they were constantly in it. It was and that I can really relate to, where I've only got to think of it and it's here.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually always, when I say think of it, maybe that's not exactly the right terminology. I've got to just remember, oh yeah, and it's here. And I, you know, if I'm busy writing a poem or something, I'm not conscious of it. I'm working the poem, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, I assume when you're working on your poetry, you find yourself in a flow state, and flow is obviously something you talk about in the book as well. And my question is, and you call it absorption as well, is that right? Yeah. So my question is, do you think flow can ever be the antithesis of mindfulness? I feel like I have the opposite problem to many people. I find it exceptionally easy to get into flow states, and you know, the whole day will pass and I haven't eaten, I haven't even used the toilet. Like once when I was young, our kitchen was on fire and I was drawing a picture and I didn't do anything about it. I was too immersed in my picture. And so, you know, I have an unusual relationship with the zone because I have to structure it out of my life, because otherwise I miss appointments and get into trouble and things like that. And I'm wondering, it feels to me like it's actually not a very mindful space because I have no sensory awareness at all other than where it is required for whatever it is that I'm doing. And I'm wondering if you can have too much flow. If flow can be dangerous.
That's a wonderful problem to have. You know, the old researcher Csikszentmihalyi, who was the pioneering founder researcher into flow, he said the more of it somebody has in their life, the happier they are and the more satisfied with life they are. That was what his research strongly pointed to. So
Really?
I think it's all good. I mean, I could imagine a case where, you know, you got to pay the bills, you got to go shopping, you got some things to take care of. I mean, it sounds like you're an intensely creative person, I'm guessing.
It's what drives me. What's what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, intense creatives wouldn't be that way unless they were dropping into flow in whatever their creative outlet is, or there may be more than one. Creativity flows well in flow, you know, it's very, very, so it's working together beautifully for you. But yeah, unfortunately, you know, daily chores and weekly chores and stuff will come knocking on the door and they've got to be taken care of, and they might interrupt the flow. What I think is beautiful in meditation is that in time we can get into flow and it's not with an outward task of any kind. We're just sitting there. And to be in flow with your own being is an amazing experience. I not taking away at all from flow with outward activities. That's fantastic as well. But there's this other flavor of it, flow with your own being. And you're just absorbed in the fabric of your own being. And it's incredibly rich and fulfilling. And it does have a different quality because you're clearly attentive and aware. And it's like you suddenly flip the magic switch on meditation. Oh my gosh, this is what meditation is for. It's to be in this state where I'm completely aware and it's totally effortless and it's totally fulfilling. And I need, if this was the rest of my life, I'm good.
That does sound like a slightly different thing. And I love the dichotomy between inward and outward, because they do seem like they are different things, or as you say, different flavors.
I think they're different. Yeah, I think they're different flavors. And because I love outward flow. Flow in and outward activities. But I just want to slightly adjust the language, because I'm not saying when you're in flow in meditation, it's an entirely inward-looking thing. No, because you can be quite aware of sounds, of sensations of your body, of seeing, and it's not like you don't have to be wrapped in an inward-looking bubble. It can come that way, but you can also be aware of the wall in front of you if you're sitting with eyes open, for example.
Are you tired after that kind of flow? Because I find that I'm exhausted, and that's my other issue with it is, okay, again, this is for external activities, but if I've been doing the same thing for 8 hours, after those 8 hours, I'm bad company because I'm just tired. And do you find the same thing with this flavor of flow, or do you find yourself energized?
Yeah, I would say on the whole, I felt flushed and cleansed and purified and energized.
Very cool.
But there could also be, there could be a sense of fatigue as well, but it sort of feels good anyway.
Yeah.
But I recognize that what you're describing also with intense creative flow is that it's very fulfilling, right? I assume, but you come out of it. Yeah, and then you come out and you can be tired. I think it's quite natural. Yeah.
Okay. So Henry, aside from the book, you also have this incredible new app, and it really helps people find some of the more practical ways into this journey, into this path. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing with that project?
Yeah, it's called The Way, and we decided that there was a gap in the market, basically, and we've been proven in a way correct so far, because we don't have choice in our app. We have no choice. It's one long-term pathway. And
wow.
all the and the things that I talk about in the book, these 4 areas of practice that I think is healthy and really good to develop in and know about. We lead the user through all these 4 zones kind of cyclically. You go round and round through, so you get deeper and deeper in mindfulness, in a sense of connectedness, and in flow. We bring on meditative flow, and in glimpses of non-duality, of awakening. So we're kind of trying to have this well-rounded approach to practice, we hope, that will take you into all these different territories and gradually help you get more and more conversant with them.
That's so cool, because I find that often when I'm on apps like this, there's a bit of decision paralysis. Like, I don't know where the hell I'm supposed to go. And I love the idea of you telling me what to do.
Well, that was the thing we found. Our research was that, you think more choice is always better, but actually we were finding that wasn't true. People were having exactly choice paralysis. And there were lots of stories of people I knew who they did the free version of Headspace for a while, which had very limited choice. They thought, man, I'm liking this. So they they started paying for it. Yeah. And all of a sudden they're deluged with choice and they stopped using it. So we decided to just strip out choice. You have choice about how long you want to sit for, and that's it. Then you just follow the pathway, and it also clarifies. There's a lot of confusion in the world of meditation about what different terms really mean, and there's in my mind there's a total distinction between awakening and mindfulness. Mindfulness is about reducing your stress and becoming more aware in the present moment and knowing what's going on within you knowing what's going on around you, and being able to sort of navigate and calm your nervous system. Awakening is totally different. It's discovery of non-duality, that you're really not who you thought you've always been all along, and so we're trying to also just really help people understand the map of meditation and lead them through the territory at the same time.
No, I love that, because part of what's exciting as well about going on this journey is, what convinced me to start meditating wasn't that I was getting more relaxed, is that it was starting to answer some of my philosophical problems and existential problems. And it sounds like you're building in that side of things, the big questions and the big ideas, which for certain people is what makes the journey exciting.
Exactly. That's which we're really trying to. And at the same time, there's also a danger of people who are in traditions that are so exclusively focused on non-duality that they actually don't touch on some sort of human development that really is part of meditation as well. So we're trying to really cover the main foundational basis that you really need. Yeah, and it's kind of like a university course. It's like a 3-year program. If you do this thing for 3 years, you'll be very well set for whatever else you want to do.
You'll have a degree in human condition.
We kind of hope so.
Last few questions for you, Henry. You are the king of koans, as far as I'm concerned. And would you mind quickly explaining what a koan is? And if there was one koan someone listening could meditate on, having absolutely no understanding of Eastern philosophy or any experience, what would it be?
Okay, look, what koans are is they're these weird little nuggets of their verbal phrases, little word phrases, some of which seem quite understandable. There might be a question like, who am I? What is this? Those are koans, actually. But some of them are like totally baffling. Like one just apropos what we were just talking about, there's a master, this is a Zen master in the 9th century in China. He was asked, what is the heart of Buddhism? What is the heart of awakening? What's the essence of awakening? And his answer was, I'm really tired from sitting for a long time. That was his answer. There's another one where this master is asked, some similar question, like, I heard that you awakened under a particular teacher. And his response is, wait for it, the province of Qin produces giant radishes. I heard that you had a massive awakening experience when you were studying 20 years ago with that teacher. The province of Qin produces giant radishes. What is this? But he actually means it. So what's the heart of Zen that slightly differentiates it from other kinds of meditation practice is that it doesn't see itself as just sort of training your mind, just getting you to understand your own mind and your own consciousness. It believes that whatever there is to learn, this whole world is part of that. In other words, anything in the world can be the teacher of awakening. A thing like those koans where somebody there's a koan where here's another one. The student asks, what is awakening? The teacher says, pass me the water jug. Pass me the water jug. That's it. Anything in the world is of the same fabric as whatever awakening is. Yeah. Therefore, anything in the world can be your teacher.
Cool.
And not only that, it is in fact your teacher. Cool. The fact, and it can be an object, and it can be a fact. It can be the fact that this region of China, Qin, used to produce giant radishes. It's true. Giant 3-foot daikon radishes, would grow there. So that also is the fact of awakening right there.
That's great.
That's kind of the logic.
That's
really illogical
cool.
Logic. Yeah.
No, I love it. That's so much fun. And, you can just go and make your own ones if you need to, it sounds like.
Some do. I mean, there are so many traditional ones that in some lineages you kind of have to work your way through as a training.
You got to earn your stripes in the Koan
sort of
industry.
thing. Yeah. Also, do you want any more? My God, there's enough. You know?
Okay, yeah, true. Henry, there's two questions that I end off with every guest. And the first is, what are you working on about yourself? You can answer that in any way you like.
I'll tell you what my total aspiration in life would be. If I could get to this point where I am maximally peaceful and fully open. So whatever happens, however disastrous, I'm open to it.
Wow.
That would be my idea of a crowning achievement of a lifetime.
Wow. Okay, that's very cool. And what makes you really happy?
Chatting like this. You
Yeah.
know, I can tell you, it's always it's right now. If any time I'm happy right now.
Okay.
Right? It's
Very cool.
always here and now.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it meant specifically talking to me, but that's okay.
Actually, right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for your time, Henry. And we'll be sharing the book around original love, and not even finding more original love, but just realizing that it's already there. I think that's really special.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's great to meet you. I've been enjoying listening to you on the app. So it's lovely to meet. Yeah.
That's so sweet.